Chapter 1. The Unexplained Absence. The town of Willowbrook was a picturesque haven nestled between rolling hills and a glistening river. In the heart of this charming town lived Sarah and David, a couple whose love story had once been the envy of all who knew them. Sarah, with her hazel eyes that sparkled like autumn leaves and her gentle smile, was the town's librarian. David, tall and rugged, was the local carpenter, renowned for his craftsmanship and warm heart. Together, they were an inseparable pair, their love radiating like a beacon in the community. Their story began on a balmy summer evening at the annual town fair. Amidst the laughter and twinkling lights, David had approached Sarah with a bouquet of wildflowers, his hands trembling with nervousness. They danced beneath the starry sky, and from that moment on, their lives became intertwined. The years passed in a blissful blur, filled with shared dreams and whispered promises. Sarah and David's love grew stronger with each passing season. They spent their weekends strolling hand in hand through the town's cobbled streets, stealing kisses beneath the ancient oak tree in the park, and carving their initials into its weathered bark as a testament to their eternal love. But then, one crisp autumn morning, the town awoke to an unsettling absence. David was nowhere to be found. There were no letters, no explanations, only a vacant space in Sarah's life where her beloved had once stood. She visited their oak tree every day, its leaves now a somber shade of brown, and her heart felt as though it mirrored the tree's fading beauty. Sarah's life crumbled without David. The once bustling library became a lonely sanctuary, filled with the echoes of their shared laughter and conversations. Her friends and neighbors tried to console her, but the emptiness in her heart was a void that could not be filled. Each night Sarah would lie in their bed, her body aching for the warmth of David's embrace, her tears staining the pillow where he had once rested his head. The days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and still, there was no sign of David, no word to explain his sudden departure. Rumors began to swirl through the town like autumn leaves caught in a brisk wind. Some said David had left for another woman, while others believed he had met with misfortune on a distant journey. Sarah, however, clung to the hope that he would return, her heart aching with the unanswered question of why he had left. As the seasons changed, so did Sarah. She lost her appetite, her once lustrous hair dulled, and her eyes grew dim with the pain of uncertainty. She became a ghost of the woman she once was, wandering aimlessly through the town she had once explored hand in hand with the love of her life. And so, in the midst of this idyllic town, a tragedy had unfolded. Sarah's suffering was a silent symphony of heartache, her life forever marked by the unexplained absence of the man she loved. Little did she know that after 6 long years, the winds of fate would bring David back into her life with a bewildering excuse, setting the stage for a love story unlike any other. Chapter 2. Endless Heartache. As the months turned into years, Sarah's suffering became a part of her daily existence. Her life had once been a tapestry of joy and laughter, woven together with David's presence. But now, that tapestry lay in tatters, its vibrant colors faded to a dull gray. Her once bustling library, where she had shared stories and secrets with David, now felt like a cavern of solitude. The books that had once brought her comfort now mocked her with their tales of love and happiness. Her friends, once a source of joy, grew worried as they watched her slowly wither away. Sarah's cheeks lost their rosy hue, and her eyes were perpetually swollen from nights of endless weeping. She could hardly remember the last time she had felt the warmth of the sun on her skin or the simple pleasure of laughter. The town's fair, where she and David had danced beneath the stars, had become an unbearable reminder of their lost love. She could no longer bear to attend, for the twinkling lights and merry laughter only served to deepen her despair. With each passing day, her world grew smaller, her heart aching for the familiar touch of David's hand. She would walk the streets they had once explored together, her footsteps echoing in the empty spaces he had left behind. But as the years stretched on, even Sarah's most cherished memories began to fade. She would clutch at fragments of their love, desperately trying to hold on to the feel of his lips against hers or the sound of his laughter, but they slipped through her fingers like grains of sand. The town's whispers grew louder, gossip swirling like a tempest around her. Some speculated that David had found another love, while others believed he had perished in a distant land. Sarah, however, refused to give in to despair. She believed in the strength of their love, the unbreakable bond they had shared. She knew that somewhere, deep within his heart, David still loved her. Chapter 3. Searching for Answers. Sarah's days were consumed by a single, burning question. Where was David, and why had he left? She could no longer bear the uncertainty that gnawed at her like a relentless storm. With determination in her heart, Sarah embarked on a quest to find answers. She combed through the town's records, talked to old acquaintances, and even hired a private investigator in her desperate search for any clue about David's whereabouts. The townspeople were sympathetic to her plight, offering their support and any tidbits of information they could recall. Yet, despite her relentless efforts, she unearthed no tangible leads. David had seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving behind no trace of his existence. Sarah's library became a hub of investigation, its tables strewn with maps, newspaper clippings, and hastily scribbled notes. Late into the night, she would pore over these fragments of hope, her determination unwavering. She retraced their steps, visiting the places they had once frequented together, hoping that some memory or connection would lead her to him. But each visit was a painful reminder of his absence, the ghostly echoes of their laughter haunting her every step. Months turned into years, and still, David remained elusive. Sarah's hope flickered like a candle in the wind, but she refused to let it die. She was determined to find him, to uncover the truth behind his inexplicable departure, no matter how many obstacles lay in her path. As she delved deeper into her quest, Sarah's once vibrant spirit was now a beacon of unwavering resolve. She had come to understand that the journey to find David was not just about reuniting with her lost love. It was about reclaiming her own sense of self, her own purpose in a world that had grown cold and empty without him. And so, Sarah continued her search, determined to unravel the mystery of David's disappearance and to bring their love story back from the brink of tragedy. Chapter 4. A Chance Encounter. It was a crisp autumn afternoon when Sarah's tireless pursuit of answers led her to a place she had avoided for years, the park where she and David had once shared countless moments of happiness. As she strolled along the familiar path, the leaves beneath her feet crunched like broken promises. Sarah's heart was heavy, and she couldn't help but feel a pang of bitterness toward this place that had once been a sanctuary of love. She approached the weathered oak tree, its branches stretched out like weary arms, and the memories came rushing back. Their initials, D+S, still adorned the tree's bark, a testament to the love that had once flourished here. But now they seemed like a cruel joke, a reminder of a love that had been torn asunder. As Sarah stood there, lost in her thoughts, her heart skipped a beat. In the distance, beneath the dappled sunlight filtering through the trees, she saw a figure that looked strangely familiar. Her breath caught in her throat, and her steps quickened as she approached. It couldn't be, she thought, her heart pounding like a drum. But as she drew closer, there was no denying it. It was David. He stood there, his back turned to her, gazing at the same initials they had carved into the tree years ago. His hair had grown longer, and his shoulders bore the weight of time and distance. He was different, changed by the years they had spent apart, but there was no mistaking the silhouette she had longed to see. Tears welled up in Sarah's eyes as a whirlwind of emotions overtook her. She watched him from afar, her heart torn between joy and anger, relief and resentment. She had spent 6 long years searching for him, and now here he was, within her reach. Chapter 5. The Return. Summoning every ounce of courage she had left, Sarah approached David. Her voice trembled as she called out his name, and he turned to face her, his eyes widening in disbelief. "Sarah," he whispered, as though testing the sound of her name on his lips. She couldn't speak, couldn't find the words to express the torrent of emotions raging within her. She simply reached out and touched his cheek, as though confirming that he was real, that he was not a mirage born of her desperate longing. David's excuse, when it finally came, seemed almost too absurd to believe. He explained that he had heard of a rare flower rumored to possess miraculous healing properties. He believed that this flower held the key to curing a rare illness that plagued his family, an illness that had already taken the lives of his parents and threatened the well-being of his younger siblings. Driven by desperation and a sense of duty, David had left without explanation, hoping to save his loved ones from a fate that had haunted his family for generations. He had believed that the quest for this elusive flower would be a matter of months, not years. But as he spoke, Sarah's disbelief turned to anger. She couldn't fathom how he could have abandoned her without a word, leaving her to suffer in agonizing silence. The town had gossiped and speculated about his absence, and Sarah had been left to bear the weight of their judgments alone. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she demanded answers, her voice filled with a mix of hurt and betrayal. David's eyes brimmed with remorse, and he hung his head in shame. He had never intended to cause her so much pain, and the realization of the suffering he had inflicted upon her weighed heavily on his soul. Their reunion, though longed for, was far from the joyful embrace Sarah had envisioned for so many years. Instead, it was marked by a painful reckoning with the past, a confrontation with the inexplicable choice David had made to leave her behind. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows over the park, Sarah and David stood there, their love story forever altered by the scars of those 6 years of separation. The path ahead was uncertain, their hearts filled with a tumultuous mix of love, forgiveness, and doubt. The stage was set for a story of redemption and reconciliation, one that would test the limits of their love and the strength of their souls. Chapter 6. The Healing Flower. The park, once a place of cherished memories, now became a backdrop for a difficult conversation. Sarah listened as David explained the reason for his prolonged absence, his voice trembling with the weight of his guilt. David's quest for the rare flower was fueled by the hope of saving his siblings from the same cruel fate that had befallen his parents. He had embarked on this journey with the best of intentions, believing that the flower's miraculous healing properties would bring an end to the curse that had haunted his family for generations. As he recounted his adventures, he described the treacherous landscapes he had traversed, the nights spent beneath the starry sky, and the encounters with local villagers who had shared stories of the elusive flower. But time had a way of distorting his perception, and what he had believed would be a brief journey had turned into a protracted odyssey. David's voice cracked as he confessed that he had underestimated the challenges of his quest. He had been plagued by setbacks and obstacles, from harsh weather to dangerous encounters with wildlife. Months had stretched into years, and still the healing flower remained beyond his grasp. Sarah's anger began to wane as she listened to his tale of hardship and dedication. The initial shock of his return had given way to a deeper understanding of the sacrifices he had made, driven by love and a profound sense of responsibility toward his family. Yet, despite the hardships he had faced, she couldn't help but question why he had not found a way to communicate with her, to let her know he was alive and well. The silence between them hung heavy in the air, a lingering reminder of the pain they had endured. David, realizing the enormity of his mistake, admitted that he had been consumed by his quest, his every thought focused on finding the elusive flower. He had convinced himself that he could not return until he had succeeded, believing that his absence was a necessary sacrifice to save his family. Their conversation stretched into the night, and as the moon rose overhead, Sarah and David grappled with the complex emotions that had defined their separation. Their love remained, but trust needed time to mend. It was a fragile reunion, a delicate dance of forgiveness and doubt, with no easy answers to the questions that had haunted Sarah for so long. Chapter 7. Forgiveness and Doubt. Days turned into weeks, and Sarah and David continued to navigate the treacherous terrain of their rekindled relationship. Their days were filled with long, soul-searching conversations and moments of painful silence. David was determined to make amends, to prove his love and commitment to Sarah. He showered her with affection, his every action a testament to his remorse. He brought her wildflowers, reminiscent of the bouquet he had given her on that fateful summer evening so many years ago, and he cooked her meals, filling their home with the comforting aroma of his culinary creations. Sarah, torn between the love she had never stopped feeling for David and the wounds of his abandonment, struggled to reconcile her emotions. She had spent 6 long years yearning for his return, and now that he was back, forgiveness seemed both necessary and elusive. Their friends and neighbors, who had watched their love story unravel and now witnessed its uncertain revival, offered their support and advice. Some encouraged Sarah to forgive and embrace the second chance they had been given, while others cautioned her to tread cautiously, to protect her heart from further pain. As they grappled with their emotions, Sarah and David ventured to the park where they had first met. The oak tree, which had borne witness to the beginnings of their love story, now stood as a symbol of the trials they had faced. Under the shade of its branches, they shared their deepest fears and regrets. David spoke of the guilt that had weighed on him during his years of absence, and Sarah admitted the loneliness and despair that had haunted her nights. They cried together, their tears mingling with the memories of their shared past. Sarah knew that forgiveness was a journey, not a destination. She longed to believe in David's remorse and to rebuild the life they had once dreamed of together. But the wounds of the past ran deep, and trust had been shattered. Chapter 8. Rebuilding a Life. As the weeks turned into months, Sarah and David faced the daunting task of rebuilding their lives together. The love that had once bound them remained, but their journey was fraught with challenges. David had returned to his carpentry work in town, but the skills he had honed over the years were tinged with a sense of loss. The rhythm of his tools and the scent of freshly cut wood no longer brought the same joy they once had. He missed the simplicity of their life together, the evenings spent by the fireplace and the shared dreams of the future. Sarah, too, found herself struggling to reclaim the sense of purpose and independence she had once possessed. Her library, once a source of solace and joy, had become a place of bittersweet memories. The books she had shared with David seemed to mock her, their pages filled with tales of love and reconciliation that felt painfully out of reach. Their home, once a sanctuary of love, now bore the scars of their separation. The walls seemed to echo with the silence that had pervaded those long, lonely years. They both longed for the familiar comfort of each other's presence, yet the wounds of the past still festered beneath the surface. Despite their pain, Sarah and David clung to the fragile hope that their love could withstand the trials they faced. They embarked on a journey of rediscovery, learning to navigate the changes that had occurred during their time apart. They laughed together, tentatively at first, but with growing ease as they uncovered the familiar rhythms of each other's laughter. They explored the town they had once known so well, rekindling their connection to the community they had both missed. But the scars of their separation remained. Sarah would sometimes wake in the middle of the night, her heart racing with the memory of those long years without David. She would reach out to find him by her side, his warmth a comforting reminder that he was indeed back in her life. David, too, would wake in the dark, his dreams haunted by the pain he had caused Sarah. He would hold her close, silently vowing to never let her go again, to make amends for the suffering he had inflicted upon her. Their love story had transformed into a tale of redemption, a second chance at happiness. Each day was a step toward healing, a journey toward rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. Their friends and neighbors watched with bated breath, hoping that Sarah and David could overcome the shadows of their past and find a way back to the love that had once been their guiding light. Chapter 9. A Fragile Reunion. The seasons continued to change, and as time passed, Sarah and David's love story took on a new and fragile form. Their love remained, a beacon of hope in the face of adversity, but the scars of their separation were etched deep within their hearts. Their journey toward forgiveness was a slow and often painful one. Sarah had found it in her heart to forgive David for abandoning her, recognizing the desperation in his eyes and the sincerity of his remorse, but trust, once broken, could not be easily restored. David, aware of the fragile nature of their reunion, had committed himself to proving his love and dedication to Sarah each day. He knew that his actions would speak louder than words, and he was determined to rebuild the trust he had shattered. Their shared experiences of laughter and tears, joy and sorrow, slowly began to mend the wounds of their past. They no longer avoided the park where they had first met, but instead they visited the oak tree that had borne witness to their love story, a symbol of their resilience and determination. They made new memories together, weaving a tapestry of experiences that reflected the changes they had undergone during their years apart. Their love, once filled with the exuberance of youth, had deepened into a bond forged in the fires of adversity. Their friends and neighbors, who had been both witnesses to their separation and supporters of their reunion, celebrated the couple's enduring love. They saw the transformation that had taken place, the way Sarah and David had grown individually and together. And so, their love story continued, forever marked by the shadows of the past, but holding on to the hope that love could conquer even the deepest of wounds. It was a story of redemption, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love. A love that had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, a testament to the resilience of the human heart. As Sarah and David faced the future together, they knew that their love was not without its scars, but it was a love that had endured, a love that had found its way back from the brink of tragedy, and a love that would continue to light their path as they embarked on the next chapter of their journey together. Chapter 10. The unusual twist years had passed since Sarah and David's reunion, and their love story had taken a most unusual turn, one that no one in the quiet town of Willowbrook could have predicted. As the couple continued to rebuild their lives together, something extraordinary began to happen. It started with the discovery of a hidden garden at the edge of town, a garden filled with the very flower David had sought during his years of absence. The healing flower, with its delicate petals and ethereal glow, seemed almost mythical in its beauty. Its presence in Willowbrook was nothing short of miraculous, and it left the townspeople in awe. But what truly baffled everyone was the effect the flower seemed to have on those who came into contact with it. As word spread about the miraculous flower, people from all over began to visit Willowbrook, hoping to witness its extraordinary powers. Those who touched the flower claimed to experience a profound sense of healing, both physical and emotional. Old wounds seemed to mend, and hearts burdened by pain found solace. Sarah and David, intrigued by the flower's mystical properties, were drawn to the garden. As they stood among the blooms, hand in hand, they felt a surge of warmth and connection, as though the flower itself recognized the depth of their love and the trials they had endured. It was said that the flower had the power to reveal hidden truths, and Sarah and David, with their love story marked by mystery and suffering, were no exception. As they touched the petals, they saw glimpses of their past, their shared memories, and the pain they had both endured. But the most unusual twist of all was the realization that the flower held the answer to a question that had haunted Sarah for years, the reason for David's abrupt departure. It was as though the flower, with its otherworldly wisdom, had chosen this moment to unveil the truth. David's quest for the rare flower had indeed been driven by a noble cause, to save his family from a generations-old curse. Yet what he had not revealed was that the curse had also affected him. He had been afflicted by the same illness that had claimed the lives of his parents, and he had left in desperation, believing that the flower held the key to his own survival. The revelation left Sarah and David stunned, their emotions a tumultuous blend of shock, understanding, and compassion. The flower had brought closure to a chapter of their love story marked by silence and suffering, and it had illuminated the depth of David's sacrifice. With the truth finally revealed, Sarah and David's love story took on a new dimension. They became stewards of the garden, tending to the healing flower and sharing its magic with those who sought solace and redemption. Their love, once marked by tragedy and separation, had now become a beacon of hope and healing for all who crossed their path. They had not only found their way back to each other, but had also discovered a purpose greater than themselves, a purpose rooted in the extraordinary power of love. And so, in the quiet town of Willowbrook, where their love story had begun, Sarah and David's journey continued. A journey filled with unexpected twists, profound revelations, and a love that had transcended time and circumstance, forever bound to the enchanting presence of the miraculous healing flower.